Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Rutherford County Schools. Tonight's special call meeting on budget. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, led tonight by Board Member Coy Young.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now you've got your agenda there in front of you, and Mr. Odom or Mr. Sandvig will take it away. I believe Mr. Odom's going to start.
I'm going to start. This remains the toughest budget I've had in 6 years, to be honest, and I'll show you, I think as we go through this and we see what's affecting this budget, it wouldn't be very tough if it weren't for some things that kind of seem to be somewhat unique for this year. Before we look at anything else about changes in it, I want to kind of go over the two-page, and it's the RCS, Rutherford County Schools 2018-2019 budget considerations, May 14th, 2018. So the proposed budget that we have right now for 2018-19 is $387,899,979. The estimated revenue, which is really a 430.18, which is the one that Ms. Nolan was working with. Mr. Sandvig and I attended the Budget and Finance meeting actually last Thursday evening. So that's where these numbers come from. So it shows us with a deficit of $15,214,683 between revenue and expenditures. So that's kind of a figure you can keep in your mind. So here's, in the other second part here is some information that we garnered from that meeting that may help you. The current property tax rate for this year's was $2.68 per hundred. The certified rate after the new appraisal, the figure that they're using as of last Thursday, was $2.1093, or about $2.11. So it goes from about $2.68 to $2.11. If that holds to be the certified rate. The other thing is that we have to realize we do share with the city, because city taxpayers pay county taxes too. So of that penny, we get 84.97%, and the city gets 15.03%. And it's fluctuated around from that to a little better than 16% for a number of years now. That's been a relatively stable amount, and at the far right, that shows you what part of the tax rate that particular part might be. So the revenue per penny for the county budget, all of it, the general, everything together is $894,054. For schools, for each penny, we get $759,678. And I want to say, kind of add a little something here, and I'll try to emphasize it again next week for people that may be listening to us. You know, people say, why doesn't growth pay for itself? But you can take kind of the average home in Rutherford County now, and it wouldn't be unusual for probably to be $1,100 to somewhere around $1,500 for property taxes. And we spend a little over $3,000 per pupil in county money, and another $5,000, in state money. So growth by itself doesn't pay for itself. It just doesn't. Sales tax and all, when we urge people to shop in Rutherford County, all of that helps go into that. So kind of looking at where we are now, what kind of things are the mandated budget adjustments is the next little piece there. And this is the part, if you want to circle it, that's our problem. And we have no control over it. The medical insurance increase, the first one there, based upon employees anticipated for us, is an increase of $4,365,449. That's to kind of stay where you are. The state retirement increase this year, the state's requiring a greater contribution for us. So that's $3,307,528. The other change, which is not really an increased cost, but it really is with the Tasser-Fox ability to pay indexed, that slice of pie for Rutherford County, because they have now calculated that we can fund more of that basic education program formula, is about $1,300,000. So adding those three numbers together, you've got $8,972,977, and that's our issue. If that weren't in there, we could operate quite well and be ready to move on. So that's something that we want commissioners and others to understand, that staying where you are, you're still about $9 million just to meet the new requirements and things we're doing. Just a reminder, in the per pupil expenditure in the 16-17 report card, you know, Rutherford County was $1,314.40 below the state average per pupil expenditure. If you multiply that times 45,000 plus about 45,000 students, you're looking at better than $50 million that we spend less than the average school district in Tennessee for if they had the same number of pupils. I've said this before, and I'll say it again next week. This is not sustainable. You will not be able to operate continually at $1,300 below the state average with the growth we're seeing, with the population changes that we have, and the things that's happening. So, you know, get ready. You can have 1 or 2, 3 years of some of this, but you know very well for the last several years we've been 1,000 to this 1,300 below the state average. So going forward, you're just not going to be able to do that. So let's kind of take a look at the estimated ending fund balance for 17-18. The estimated ending fund balance for 17-18, now that's less anything that we have already decided to spend, like we talked about, if you remember, going ahead and buying that 1 to 2 computers in 6 through 8. So if we go ahead and pay for it this year, then that's not, this is your uncommitted ending fund balance is what I'm saying. So that's $27,653,722 at this point, best we can tell, and that'll keep changing till the end of June, actually. It's about 7.5% of what our total budget that we came out with an ending fund balance this year, which is shows that you've been conservative enough. You've been good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We built in about 3 to 4%, but we've managed at this point in time about 7%. The estimated 3% ending fund for 18-19, in other words, if we look at the budget we have tonight, we'll have to set aside for that state mandated 3%, $11,636,999. Now, since you're opening 2 schools next year, and also that ending fund balance does not include the $5 million, we got an amendment in here tonight, doesn't include the $5 million we promised to set aside for Rockville High. $2.5 million last year, $2.5 million this year. So that's not in that 27 either. This is 27 is the pure number we got to work with. So if you were to set aside an extra 1%, it would be $3,879,000. So if we projected where are we compared to this ending fund balance, at a 4% is $12,137,732. You know, we could, and you can see this as you begin to look at some of these line items, if we decided not to do the full 4%, but a half there, just cut that in half again, you know, the amount for 1 more %, then you're at $14,077,223. Now, questions about this page or comments or something, get Mr. Sandvig, and maybe we can help you. First time you've seen it organized this way, so that's...
Gordon?
Is the 1% supposed to cover the $5 million for opening up?
And we set aside, we pulled out that $5 million and going to amend it in this year's budget so it'll be there. So you won't have to worry about that.
Okay.
That other $2.5 million to make it the total $5.
But it's not in this estimated ending fund balance?
No,
That other
that or
2.5.
those computers. Plus, we also talked about for some high school computers for certain subject areas. That was about what,
450,000.
about 450,000. So those things, if we could go ahead and buy it now, it'd be ready to start in the fall, but that's not in that 27 million, because we would buy that through the 16 or 17, 18 budget.
So I'm going to show my deficiency in math here. So if we stayed with the 4% and to give you working payroll dollars for next year, and we kept 12 million, does that mean that we're 3 million short?
Well, if we keep, I've got a typo on there, sorry.
I'm sorry.
If we kept 4% in fund balance of this estimate at this point, we would have 12 million above the 4%.
Or at the end of next year. So you're talking now ending fund balance for 18, 19. Kind of what you're talking about.
Funds we could use to help fund the 2018-19 budget.
That 12 million,
Yes, sir.
If you cut that 4%, if you cut the 3% is required by supposedly the state, the other 1%, if you cut that in half, you can kind of see each percent is 3,879,000. So you get down between the 14 that you would have.
so again, my question is, if we did the 4% ending fund, would that be 12.1 million to go against the 15.2? So using those numbers, we're a little over 3 million
Right,
in deficit.
right.
Okay.
Let me kind of throw out another something for you to kind of think about in this too. Another kind of estimate for you to think about is, if we take what we know at this particular point, the state may give us, just kind of taking a look at that. It's about 125 points, 126 position, round it off. In other words, the BEP change in the formula, if we grow with the 1,200 we've kind of projected, it would be 126 positions. The budget we're kind of looking at tonight, in full-time equivalents, the budget tonight's about 124. So we're pretty close to using all of the state monies back in the personnel, and better than 80% of our budget, you know, is personnel. And so that's whatever we do almost always affects personnel in that particular sense. Let's look at,
Mr. Edit,
yes, ma'am.
I have a question back to your first page. On the Tasser-Fox calculation, that was a reduction from what I understand from what we had previous years. How much did it differ from, say, last year and even perhaps?
Well, with the number of pupils that we're to receive next year, it would be 1,300,000 less because of, what was the percent?
I'm looking for that right now.
It's 50% Tasser and 50% Fox is the way they do it. It's half and half. They were in the process of changing it, so I don't know where that's.
Our weighted percentage is 4.647%. 4.647.
With the current
for 18-19 projected, and
It's showing on here, correct?
I'm sorry.
1,000,003 that's showing on the sheet.
Right. And I'm looking for last year's.
While you're looking for last year's, do you remember what, of course, we robbed Peter last year, and we have year after year.
Million.
So what was the ending fund balance percentage last year?
I'd have to calculate that. We took 6.77 million to fund the current year
To
budget.
balance it.
We
So do you think we did more than 4%, or we did less?
we had over 4, yes, sir.
Even after we
Oh, yes,
balanced the
yes.
budget?
Yeah, because we transferred 4.4 million to the building program. We were able to use 2.5 million toward half of the Rockdale High operating costs. So yeah, we are something over, I think we're a bit over 4.5% right now after those transfers out. Our Tasser-Fox index went up not quite 20 basis points.
4.647 now and
$3
previous.
million impact.
Okay.
How much?
Our Tasser-Fox index, which kind of, it says we've got 4.64% of the wealth, the fiscal capacity across the state. It went up about 20 basis points. It was about 4.45 last year, and that was $1.3 million for us. Mr. Holliday?
No, you said it, 4.45.
The second page, 2 of 2, are some possible other changes to try to close this sum if we choose to do it. Now, let me kind of mention something else to you, too, if you may recall, which we've built into those 124 positions. Remember, we have 8 positions that was in Title I that we're using federal funds for the Title I schools that stops starting next year. In other words, they said you're supplanting, that you'll have to put them in your GPS budget. Every Title I school must receive what every other regular school has, and then Title I's are used to add above that, whatever the basis is. Now, up until next year, we were able to use federal funds for 8 of those positions, basically, that they didn't make it above the others. But they've told us, so no longer supplant there. So that's 8 position at about 62.5. You remember that. The other real change is, if you remember the RTI coaches, basically we have 5 additional we need to finish out the high schools, so that every high school would have the others. And the other one was ESL. The ESL positions, we have to have 13 more ESL positions in order to maintain the 1-to-35 ratio. And I've put it kind of runs 1 year behind. So adding 13, we actually hired 23 this year, right? 23.
More to meet this year's numbers. So.
Right. So we've added in 2 years 36 ESL positions to eat 1-to-35 for this year. The state dropped it by 5, from 1-to-40 to 1-to-35. It could be if a lot more come in next year that won't meet it, but you'd have to meet it the next year. So that's a hefty amount of positions. So kind of look at that 8 and 5 and 13, 26 of those positions are really for not supplanting or ESL or equaling out the high school for RTI. So again, what I'm saying is, which you already know, it's a tight budget. I mean, it's tight. There's not padding in this thing. Taking a look at this sheet again, 5 bus routes remaining. Buses typically carry a little over 100. If we go 1,200, and about 50% of the students ride, about 600 would ride. So if you have 5 bus routes, that's not going to help you. I mean, it should maintain it, but that's all it's going to do. It's not going to really improve your times or anything. In fact, it may be a little worse if traffic comes in. That's what you got. Now, as we go down through this other thing, just kind of a running total, depending on what you do or how you treat that. The coaching supplements was $113,000. Athletic director supplements $38,140. Archery supplements elementary at 2% at 24 schools is $25,078. Middle schools at a 4% is $22,988. High schools is $18,809, and then 6 through 8 combinations is $6,270. Another place where we can deduct, I think, because we're spending $400,000 to go ahead and start this high school next year, we're taking roughly half of that back out. And I talked to Mr. Solomon again this afternoon. Now, he's got the old technology there. I mean, everything that's been there is there. We're not cutting that. But instead of adding $400,000 next year, if we can buy some of it this year, we could reduce back to $225,000. Don't like to. Technology gets hit every time, and that's one reason we're in the situation we're in. But you can see what we're there. If personnel, and again, the only way you move the pendulum much is personnel. If we take away one more SPED teacher, basically 62.5. The educational assistants with SPED, taking away 2, there's 10 left. That saves 58,380. Music and art, taking away 2. That leaves 2 for the Blackman High and middle school bands and all is $125,000. School technology specialists, which is STS, there wouldn't be any left more than, now when I say any left, more than what we originally had talked about adding. All the ones that have been here this year are there next year. But we couldn't improve that. We're not adding a new school in 18-19, so that's roughly 180,000. Custodians, 2 still unassigned, taking away 1 of those, 42.2. School counselors, they work extra days, so you basically only taking away 2, takes another 140,000 off. Now, this does not include, when you look down through this doesn't include the ones that start part of the year for the new Rockville High School or the Rocky Fork Elementary School. When we take our APs, we take those office positions and stuff, that's still in there. We're not taking any of that out for the half year. So that gets you up to about $1,122,000. We had nurses in there to go to 21. If we just go from 15 to 16, that saves $73,140. If we adjust a raise, again, the biggest adjustment, if we go from a 2% to 1.5%, here's what I'm proposing, Mr. Sandvig, I've talked about it, that I would take the people who have 25 years. You know, our step increases at 16, 21, it stopped. When Huffman was in, you remember the state stopped paying those increases after 11 years. You may remember that. We come back and added 16 and 21. But we're tending to lose people to some of the higher paying districts. Eastern County and all this been with us some of the longest. We kind of match them pretty close at beginning salaries. There's BS and zero on people starting out. But where they're pulling for us is the upper end. So this would take basically teachers that have 25 years or more would get $500 added to theirs.
Just clarification, Mr. Oden. If they've got 25 this year and hit 26 next,
Yes,
is the way I
that's what it would be.
quoted the number. or calculated the number.
So it'd be over 25, actually,
Right.
26, from 21, 26.
So for clarification, line 22 has to do with nurses. Line 23 has to do with teachers.
And
Everybody, buses, teachers, everybody else.
except the 25-plus year, that would just be teachers.
Yes.
We already have a step in there for classified staff.
To get the $1,214,000 reduction, you would have to cut 0.5% over all of the 2%. We classified, certified, buses. So basically looking from, you looked at your budget 5.1, 5.2, right to 1st of May, the 387. If you took all of those reductions, that would be $2,409,000 off. You balance 385. The revenue is still 372, so we're still off $12,804,802. So you're going to have to fund about 3.3% if you take the 12. Either ending fund balance or tax or extra pennies on the tax rate.
Or we still don't have our May estimate of the BEP and should be getting a June estimate. Maybe we'll see some slight improvement there, but we don't.
Not usually earth shaking.
No.
When you say slight, are you talking hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million or $2 million?
Well, I mean, now that our BEP is over 200 million, a
Right.
million could be slight, but there have been issues with the alternative school students feeding properly into EIS. So we're hoping, if anything, we'll see an upward trend.
And what happened there, it goes back to TN-ready testing, believe it or not. They had to count students. In order for students to be claimed by the teachers, they had to activate them in both alternative school and in the regular school. You can't get a diploma from an alternative school. So they had to activate them in both. The system is set up, if a kid is active in two places, there's $0 funding comes. So the amount you're off is the amount basically that would be in the two alternative schools if the student were taking an end-of-course assessment. Now, any of those you have in 6, 7, and 8 would be taking assessment. In high school, it would depend if they were, most seniors, unless they're taking history, are not taking an EOC. So it'd only be those that would be taking a TN-ready assessment. Now, they're telling us that they're going to make an adjustment for that. We're thinking about going to have to try to clear it up on our end in the computer, not list them at both places. But I think the claiming goes through May 16th. So we can't touch it till May 16th, so it's going to throw all that piece off too.
And the State Department of Ed did try to adjust for that issue in the April numbers that we got. We just don't know how successful that will be.
Now remember, this year we used 6.7% to balance the million to balance the budget. To balance it with the numbers, taking all these positions out up here, we need next year $12,804,000 to balance the budget, or tax increase to offset it. If you take everything up here out, anything you leave just ups it a little bit more again.
Well, and as Mr. Odom said at the beginning, back to the page 1, items 1, 2, and 3, $9 million.
Oh yeah, the whole issue is tied to.
That's it.
The mandated budget adjustments. That's the whole issue right there.
So is the county funds, are we pretty solid on those numbers, or are they still?
It looks as though we are.
It's what they're using for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the best I know to tell you.
Yeah.
Question for you on these numbers, on this page 2 of 2, and I'm sure I'm probably just missing the forest for the trees here, but the two different columns.
That's
Start at
the right column is a running total as you go down the line items. when you finish it,
Okay.
see, I mean, the running, it's just a running total is all that is. The actual reduction is in the first column.
So this is essentially proposing taking all of the supplements out there?
It takes everything out. If you do, anything we don't, we
It's not
add back.
correct.
And I'm okay to add back, but I'm just saying you can go from 12, you're gonna go up.
And the same thing with the technology.
Yes, but we are picked up more than that in this year with the 400-something thousand.
Hypothetically, if we did not deduct anything from this list, are we talking how many cents? 2 cents?
If we deducted,
If we didn't take any of these deductions and used,
just what would it take to cover the 2.4 million?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Be
About
579.
3 cents, right?
Yeah. A penny brings in 759.
Now, is that 759
That would be
without the city?
2,270
Yes.
something.
I'm sorry?
3 cents would be 2,270 some thousand.
3 cents?
Yes.
When we talked about these areas for possible reduction at our last meeting, I was under the impression left with, that we were all, although obviously we didn't make a motion or take a vote or anything, that these, like the SPED teachers and the school counselors, were something that we did not want to cut. Am I?
We left, we put the school counselor back, we put the 2 behavioral specialists back
Okay.
at the meeting the other night. And the school counselor here, we had one, and I'm not sure exactly,
We added back the psychologist.
added the psychologist back after talked about the mental health.
Okay.
Um,
So these aren't included in,
No.
we didn't pull them back out?
No.
Okay.
You know, here was the thing we tried to do. What do we have to do to stay where we are? So there's something like growth classroom positions are something like 55, 65,
Yes.
something like that.
55.
22, basically a 1 to 22 ratio into 1,200 growth. So that's built in there. Then we had the other 23 positions we couldn't control. You know, basically that we had to add. So it comes to roughly, and then he has got his partial positions in there for the new high school, Rocky Fork in that. And then what's remaining, you can add up the remaining, because the remaining are new remaining, okay? For example, under SPED teachers, we're actually adding 7. Took 1 off tonight, but we're still adding 7 for next year.
Okay.
EA assistants, we're actually adding 10 more next year.
Okay.
And music and art, adding 2 more. Assistant principals, the Oakland Middle School, basically, for that annex. Custodians, 2 additional. School counselors, 1 additional over this year. That's what that amounts to. So all of those remaining are above 17, 18. Go into 18, 19. This is not fun. I didn't want to take anything out to look at it. I'm just trying to get it in some amount maybe we can do something with.
And another thing that we do face, not next year, because we've set aside, or we'll be finishing up setting aside $5 million, we have operating costs for Rockvale High and Rocky Fork Elementary. Those, even though we've set $5 million aside, that will be a net increase to our budget that will, on an ongoing basis, have to be funded in the years after that. If we didn't face opening those 2 schools, it would be less intimidating.
We're not building
No,
houses.
I know we're not, sure. Oh, no.
And I'm driving through the county, and I'm seeing a large number of houses going up outside the city limits. And I think those are mostly in the,
Are they?
in the city, but I mean, the construction is massive, just not inside the city, so, you know, those,
That's why we need some kind of an impact fee. You know, and I'll remind that, I think if you get a water tap from Consolidated, it costs you $2,000. If you want to build a house, it's $1,500. It costs you more to get your water tap than it does to build your house. As far as your impact, that's again, the state legislature is controlling that. I mean, that's,
So let's play in the what-if game. You know, $2.5 million out of a budget that we're already short.
15.
Okay, for all practical purposes.
put you back at about, my goal was to add, use no more, well, since it's 6.7, because when I started, it was 11 to 13 million. I don't remember what it was, my first year. That we had to use to balance the budget out of fund balance.
Yeah.
We had to use that much. And again, it's kind of like the federal government does. You're spending money you hadn't got yet. You're using ending fund balance to do the next year. And so my goal was to get it down. We got it down to 6.7. I had thought this year to try to hold it at 8, no more than 8. I knew it was going to go up, but I didn't see 12 to 15. And the difference is that 9 million up there. Because if you didn't have that 9 million in that cost, you could have moved your 8 over and had some left. You wouldn't have taken 8.
what happens if the raise is 1% rather than 1.5%?
About double that, wouldn't it?
You could a little more than double. If you did not do the $500 step, you'd be a little over 300. I'm sorry, something over, maybe around 3.7 million.
What do we have last year as a raise, 2%?
What was the final raise last year?
2%. We use the state funds.
And you virtually have used all of it. You have used all of it this time, wasn't it?
Yeah, and one of the
Or
things.
either insurance.
Right, oh,
or
more than, yes.
It's more than the state raised to do the insurance. 1.5%.
Right, oh, yes.
And retirement.
Yeah. The thing that I like about the 1.5% is that totally uses the certified salary dollars that increased in the BEP. That totally uses that number for raises our current and existing staff. I like that. We do not have to follow that because as long as we have the increases in retirement and insurance, we can use those funds toward that also, state law.
I did not want to come in here tonight with us not having some numbers to look at or what happens if we change certain things. So that's why I've listed some things for us to look at,
So
whatever y'all want to do.
the $1.2 million then on that raise adjustment, the 1.5%, is that the comparison from the 2% to the 1.5%? Am I understanding that correctly?
And putting in that $500 step.
Oh, okay.
Was that 197,000? Was the step 197?
196, yes, sir.
Yeah, 196, to add $500 to everybody that has 26 years or more,
That was
196.
For our teachers.
Does that close that gap a little bit for those valuable,
Well, it gives them an increase since they hadn't gotten one since 21 years.
Right. Yeah.
well, we
They've
just,
gotten the percentage increase, but not,
we need to find some way to,
Hold on. Well, Mr. Spurlock and I talked, one of the things that he said 2 or 3 months ago, we need to find some way to hold on to these people, and
So we're going in the wrong
we're
direction.
trying to do it.
well, and what we did when the state changed to that 11-year step, what we did, we telescoped, compressed rather, and our former 26-year step, 25, whichever we had, we moved it down to 21. So anyone who was at 23, 24 got it that next year. So we didn't take anything away. We actually pushed it down to them, and they got it sooner.
So we're dealing with the $15,214,683, top of the page. unless we do any action, if we don't do any action from that, that's where our projected revenue versus projected expenses on a $387 million budget.
As we look at moving from a 2% pay increase to a 1.5% pay increase, I'm looking back at medical insurance. 4.3 million extra expense to the system.
Right.
What is the extra expense to the employee?
Probably a little over a fifth of that.
They did a breakdown depending upon which plan
Right.
you took.
Yeah.
The most expensive plan, those people are going to see what expense.
If you have dependent coverage on the deductible plan, 36.5.
increase.
If you have the copay plan, 6.9% on dependent coverage. If you have the HRA plan, 8% on dependent coverage. If you have employee only, no change on the HRA, 1% on the copay, and 108% on the deductible plan.
All right, those are a lot of great numbers. What I'm interested in is when the person takes home their paycheck and they've got an increase in medical and a 1.5% increase in, does it cover?
It will depend on what their insurance options are.
If they're lucky enough to own a home and pay property tax, probably not. They'll be short.
Property tax.
If you add the property tax that they'll get this year, plus the medical insurance cost, plus the gas increases coming at us with $2.50-something gas right now.
I've only got control of their paycheck. And so what I'm wondering is 1.5% pay increase enough to cover a $4.3 million increase in medical insurance? What is the amount of that medical insurance increase that is payroll that the employees are paying?
I would say that it is something under to around $1 million in total.
Okay.
GPS budget, and we've got.
And 0.5% is 1.2 million.
Right.
Okay.
So that's 0.5%, but that is reduced by the $196,500.
Okay, so 0.5% is about $1 million.
No, it's because we're doing savings and an increase. $1.4 million is 0.5%.
Your percentages are of different bases. When we talk about it, whatever you paid for insurance, if it goes up 8%,
Yeah.
it'll be 8% increase on your insurance.
I understand,
Can't
but
compare that with the one.
right. I'm asking the experts that deal with these numbers every day to get me the thing that matters is, does the teacher go home with more pay in 18-19 or less pay because of the impact of medical insurance offset by a 1.5% pay increase?
On the copay plan with dependents, copay plan or deductible, you're probably pretty well covered. If you're, I'm sorry, copay or HRA. If you're on the deductible plan, no, you are not. But we have such adverse claim experience in that.
They was all about ready to cut that plan out.
Yeah.
At the commission and thing, but there's so many people wanted it.
Yeah.
They kept it, but see, they're gonna get a, what, 100% increase? It's almost double.
They went ahead and dropped. This is the one I'm trying to find the right number on, so it takes a bit. Because if we folded it in this year, our actuaries were giving us a significantly higher increase, very significantly higher for all the other groups of employees. That's one of the reasons that the insurance committee voted and the commission followed to keep it
So
in place.
for the dependent, I know each year they were giving back
Right.
a percentage
Yes.
or taking a
We are
percentage from.
down to 82% that the employer pays, toward the copay plan.
So,
There are 2 more years of a 1 percentage.
but incorporated into this, there's a 1% increase for the dependent coverage too. So figured into that is another increase for family coverage.
This starts really at January 1. So they will, again, have to choose which plan of the 3 they want to choose. The only way a person could come out, some of them would be to drop to a different
Lesser
plan.
coverage. Higher deductibles but we gotta remember, we're not just competing with other counties for teachers, we're also competing with the private sector out there. The SRO division is losing SRO officers, if I understood the sheriff right the other night, to the private sector. They're going back and finding jobs that pay better. So we're competing with that industry out there. It's out there
I do
too.
think in the 20 years since I've been here, when I came here, we paid less, slightly less, for dependent coverage than my previous employer did. In those 20 years, that has pretty much reversed itself. And that is one of the things that I think helps us in recruiting teachers. We pay a larger percentage of the dependent than a whole lot of school systems do. And then our goal is to get that to 80%.
Yeah, the benefits used to be an attractant, but they're not so much attracting anymore.
Well, but we will have those teachers who leave us and, I didn't until I paid my insurance, I didn't realize what that difference was.
A lot of companies out there offer bonuses,
Oh, yes.
they're.
And then we really don't have any way to even track how many we didn't get to hire.
No.
Because they took that into consideration when they made their decision of Rutherford County versus private school or some other school system or what have you. Are we still, Dr. Anthony, are we still tracking turnover and doing regular exit interviews to determine
Yes.
why teachers are leaving? Okay.
I've got that. I'll bring that to you. Now's the busy times, so I can still tell you insurance is one of the huge factors you remember from last year.
Yeah. That's,
but I've
I'd
got
love
that
to see an
tracked.
updated version of that.
280-something people, but right now is when we're seeing the changes. If they go into another school system, the next 2 or 3 weeks is when a lot of those choices are made, but I'll give that to y'all.
In the exit interview then, if they say, leaving for another school system, do we drill down to ask more specifics as to, what attracted you to that system versus what you had here in Rutherford County? I'm wondering if maybe some more specific drill down questions in the exit interviews that help in making that determination. Okay.
I still think I still hear from people that are involved that our insurance is still better than maybe Williamson County, Wilson County, and the others, even at this. Better than the cities too, I think I've heard also still, even at that. But,
And we pay a significantly higher percentage of dependent care than Williamson.
that's the big difference
Yeah,
in the dependent
that's a
side.
huge difference.
So when do we have to make these tough calls?
We need to do it tonight so I can present it next Tuesday night
Yeah.
to the commission.
I'll make a point. Next year, it just happened, so we could talk this year. But next year, and I got to admit, self-disclosure here, I voted for this years ago to drop the percent. But anyway, the county commission is looking at this, and they're going to drop to 81 next year, right? That's already done, as a matter of fact. They don't even have to vote on it. It's done. Okay, so you got a 1% that's got to be made up somewhere. All right, it's not clear to me why they should be upset with us, where they think that money's going to come from.
Well, the 1% automatically shifts to the employee.
I understand that.
Right.
So we put in the raise for them to cover this, and as Mr. Holliday has already pointed out by 2 or 3 good questions, it might cover it and it might not.
Certainly.
It's going to be mighty close. So really, just to be fair, we're giving them a raise so they can turn around,
Give it back to the insurance.
and that's what's happening, isn't it?
move backwards, basically.
So they're not really getting,
Well,
well, when you go to, wait a minute, let me finish just a minute, Mr. Blair. So when you make that case, not you necessarily, but when the case is made, we're giving the employee a raise. That sounds so great. You know, that sounds wonderful for the employee. Great, I'm getting a raise. That's wonderful. But they're not. Not really. Maybe a tenth of a percent or something.
Yeah, the what, 10 to 15% who don't have our insurance.
All right.
Or who are individuals on the HRA plan, they are just getting the raise.
Okay, and I'll go along with that, but I'll point out that I've never been on this plan, and my insurance goes up a like amount every year.
Oh, yes.
So you give a raise to a person that's, see, even I just did it. We give them a raise. They receive extra money, and if they're not on our insurance plan, they still got to pay the insurance. I'm sorry, Mr. Blair.
no, sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for interrupting, but what you just stated made me wonder if we didn't do the raise, if it was put towards the medical expense, would they be flat or would they be better off overall?
It would depend on what you chose, what option you chose.
Or if you even had insurance.
Probably depends too on the salary level that
Right.
they're at, where they're at in the steps, and again,
Yeah.
you go back to
Yeah.
those 10% that aren't even using our
Yeah.
insurance, and
Yeah.
I did ask the other night, what does the county plan to do about increases on their salary? And she did say that, for the very reasons you said about competition, their patrol division, and was it some ambulance workers or something? The only increase they were, detention, but that was the only increases they had planned. Now, that doesn't mean an employee doesn't get an increase, but they have a little bit more elaborate step system than we do. Right. Where as I said earlier, if you get a step raise this year, your average would have been 1.3%. Then added to that would be anything we can add from here, see? Now, so they're planning increases for their critical areas that they're losing people in. That's where we are, Mr. Hodge.
Just looking at this thing, Mr. Sandvig, the running total, you know, looking at these raises, I don't know, I don't feel good about taking that away from the employees, but if you looked at one point, the running total there, that 1,000,001, that total, what would that do for your the tax rate?
A little over 14 million from fund balance to balance the budget, assuming we don't see any
And you don't add the 500, you just
yeah
keep the two.
yeah
For the $500,
right if we didn't
or 97,000 there. Or 97.
yeah so about another 1.2 million if you take everything else out.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, then we'd be at another 1.2 million, so about 14 million ending fund balance we'd be using.
You know, when you look around the country and you see has happened or is happening in 4 or 5 major cities and 5 or 6 states, including neighboring Kentucky, and you kind of wonder a little bit about teachers and who gets the blame here. If that's something that we want to think about, maybe I didn't word that very well. But if we don't ask for what we would think would be just compensation for our teachers and staff, it's kind of hard to anybody to blame the county commission or city councils or whoever else we're talking about if teachers don't receive that money, if they never get the raise. Now, I'm not saying that's happened. That has happened, actually. That's why I am saying that's happened. But that doesn't always happen, because there were some places where they've been asked many years in a row, and the county commission or the state legislature or whoever had denied it. So, okay, so they went on strike. But if we don't ask the county commission, if I were a county commissioner, I would say, well, nobody asked me. There was no raise in the budget. There was nothing there. Go back to your school board member and find out why. That's a pretty good question, isn't it? I mean, isn't that fair?
A lot of those states where you had the strike, it was tied really to the retirement piece.
Yeah.
Whereas in Tennessee's got a real sound retirement system, and what they were having to do in their case, I think the state was playing it all and was underfunding it, and so they were artificially keeping it down
for existing employees in some of the states.
So that's, I mean, a lot of theirs was tied to retirement problems now and the future because of that Gadsby calculation.
Well, let's not go through that again.
Mr. Chairman, it seems that your comment would be in support, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but would be in support of a $387,899,979 budget. The big number, the top number.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with you.
I don't know if I'm in favor of that or not, but I'm close.
Mm-hmm.
And we might all have one or two things that we would like to maybe cut or discuss independently. I'm not really sure what Mr. Hodge was trying to say a minute ago because I wasn't smart enough to understand it. But I'm pretty sure that I'm disappointed in the 2% not being there. But I get it. I understand it, I guess. But I don't believe I could possibly vote for less than 1.5. I just don't see how I could do that. And that includes everybody, doesn't it? That's everybody.
But ours is a true 1.5.
Above any
Right.
steps.
Yes, above steps or anything, whereas I'm just telling you, I know what these other school systems do. They're counting their steps as that 2% or whatever portion of that 2%.
And we are not.
We're not. We're transparent up front. You're going to get 1.5% or 2%, whatever we choose, in addition to your step, if you're due a step.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, that was my intention, stay at the 2%, okay? I guess where I'm coming from is Mr. Oldham and his staff, they basically said they can do without these adjustments. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Oldham.
I just selected some things that if I were going to prioritize to keep us, like I said, we're going to fund everything we got this year, plus real critical areas of growth. And that's how I kind of divided so we'd have something to talk about.
But basically what you listed here, you could do without.
It wouldn't be, well, it's the least hurt because we don't have it this year to start with. And we reduced how much we're adding the next year.
Well,
Here's another interesting thing too. If you wound up not using, say, those 55 teachers, if growth were a little less and you didn't use it, then it just takes you a budget amendment to move a teaching position down to the counselor with a little bit more money. So anybody that's certified in that, if it works out that you get more, can use it, you can take any of these that are certified positions and convert the teacher to that position by a budget amendment by this board.
Yeah. Budget amendment by this board, and since it's positions with the approval of the county commission, because the approval by the board and the county commission combined gives us the legal authorization. Otherwise we cannot change positions without concurrence of the county commission.
They're pretty good about approving
Oh, yes.
amendments.
Yeah.
We need to
But they
move
could,
the dollars
do that
around.
right
It's already budgeted, that's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just curious, based on your years on the commission and Health and Ag Committee, if we take it to them with $2.5 million of cuts with the deficit that we're already looking at, How much is that difference is that gonna really make? Or are we gonna get sent back to the drawing board again anyway? Or does it make that much of a difference that it's gonna make an impression?
I don't know that I can answer that question, and it's not an unfair question at all. I certainly they're going to question every dollar, and Mr. Sandvig has already had some conversations, which I think he said didn't make him very happy. I think that's how he put it, very diplomatically. Have you heard any particular comments in the last few days?
Nothing. The only comments I have been hearing, the essence of them is there's not going to be an increase from the certified property tax rate. And
There is not?
there is not. And in fact, those are the comments Mr. Odom and I have been getting at the committee meetings and all that we go to.
Most of the discussion that I have heard from, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 county commissioners, wasn't so much that, but it was certainly based on what he said earlier tonight, about 30 minutes ago. And that is that this is absolutely not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
We cannot, they're telling me,
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
we cannot continue to do this. My goodness, they're telling me this. I mean, it's kind of, I get it, I understand it. That they just do not have enough money. And, well, that means to me they're not going to tax for it, maybe, like you just said. They're not expecting the state to do anything, just, send more stuff to you to fund. I do think when I sound like I'm going to do something, when you address them, and I know, and you always do a great job of this. I'm not criticizing it at all whatsoever. But this business of this $9 million right here,
You're gonna get that.
they have. I don't want to pass over that lightly. That's not our fault.
Right.
It's-
That's how much we're off.
Yeah, I know. I understand
We
that.
could use any fund balance and do the rest of it.
Yeah. So
No tax increase.
why should the rest of our budget? And please chime in here, folks. Why should the rest of our budget suffer, and kids and staff and teachers, because of $9 million worth of increases that we can't do anything about? It's just,
We're so prosperous, we're losing $1 million.
it's not fair.
At Tasser.
Well, and one of the things that y'all as board members have to always be aware of is the intermediate, the long-term viability of our funding. The concern I have, if we go too high into ending fund balance, when there is the least when the economy turned down, we were able to, it was, thank God for the ERA money, or we would have been laying off $18 million worth of teachers and staff, if we hadn't had the ERA money.
2008.
Yes, we got $18 million one year, and that's the, but on our local revenues, we were able to kind of ratchet back, hold some expenditures, and keep our fund balance in pretty decent shape. If we are using too much of it to fund the next year's operations, and there's a downturn in the economy, that's when we might not be able to build it back up the next year to maintain those, be able to fund 12 million, 15 million, whatever, amending fund balance. And that is something you've got to consider on the long term and in the intermediate term.
Mr. Lee, when is our Rocky Fork Elementary come in? I hope we don't have to add to that one, like Oakland, Rockvale. I hope we
I didn't even want to think
change
about
the
that.
estimate. That we hadn't factored anything like that here.
Just kind of for the sake of just argument and talking about this, we've got this $9 million that we can't do anything about. Medical increase, state retirement increase, Tasser Fox. But that number doesn't even include all the other things that are in the budget that we're not talking about cutting that are unfunded mandates in the state.
The ESL numbers.
Thank you.
And the other, all of that, I'm gonna put a lot of this
Ballpark it.
together when I present it to them.
Thank you, okay, I figured you would. Do you have a ballpark? We could, or do we want to save it as a surprise?
Well, the state's answer on the ESL, though, is, and they truly can say, they have improved the funding through the BEP from it, but they are requiring where we're probably paying about half the cost of any position out of local funds.
Think of that social worker thing you looked at the other day.
Yes, yes.
And that deal,
Yeah.
how much the state was gonna, if that hits next year, where are we there?
They say none of it after 3 years or something like that, right?
What's disappointing is out of this 9 million, over half of it is medical insurance, and we see that every year.
Yes.
And that's what we gotta really start focusing on. We gotta figure out how we can control this medical insurance. It's running away, it's creating issues.
Everywhere across our economy.
So if we've got to bring that in-house and start shopping it ourselves, I don't know that our county is doing us due justice on how they're shopping this insurance.
One of the projects that I do most years is and on another level this is required, we have to demonstrate comparability that our plan is better than or as good as or better than the state teacher's plan. We have to demonstrate that each year, and Ms. Street's office does that. We meet that test. But I go and I take the numbers, and I don't think I had January 2019 numbers yet, but I had an estimate of what their increase would be. I take those numbers and plug it in. I have a grid, how many employees we have with what kind of insurance. And I compare our employee mix and their insurance choices to the state teacher plan. There is not that much difference anymore. But the big area that is different, if we went to the state teacher plan, our retirees would follow us. Our retirees have prescription coverage through the group that somewhere around, whenever we made that change, whatever year that was, the group that was hired around in the mid-90s still had prescription coverage. They would lose that prescription coverage on the state plan. Our retiree insurance this year is going to cross 2.7 million. I've got 3 million in next year's budget. If we did a switch, I think y'all would want for us to somehow pick up something for those grandfathered employees on their prescription insurance. That would probably wipe out any price improvement. So I compare it to the state plan every year in total composite dollars.
Is this pre-65?
It is pre-65 and post-65.
That's one of the drawings.
I'm sorry, pre-65s are all right in the state plan. Post-65s lose their coverage. We have post-65s who are grandfathered in maintaining their prescription coverage. And I would think that the board would want to do something to address that, and that would probably make the cost of the two plans essentially the same, or might make the state plan and our cost of some kind of prescription coverage a bit higher. But I evaluate that every year.
I'm just not comfortable that we have went out and looked at every company. There may be a company out there that even beat the state plan. So, I mean, that's what I'm getting at. We got to go out here and competitively shop this medical insurance. I don't know that we have done our best as far as getting that cost down. I'd just like to see us challenge ourselves to focus on that number, see what we can do to improve it.
Chairman, thank you. Mr. Young brings up a really, really good point, and I've got a couple questions that I'd just kind of like to tag on to that. Having shopped so many insurance plans in the past, when you look at, because I know that a large part of what we or the county do, I'm sure anyway, is self-funded to a certain point. We have those aggregates and so on. And all of that, all of the underwriting and actuarial calculations that come into coming back to us and saying this is what you get this next year, take it or leave it, or pick and choose, is based on loss history and experience records or claims. Are we, and when I say we, the school system, you separate us out from the county, are we impacted by their claims as well as our own at the end of the day? Okay. So are you able to see the differences? I mean, I think kind of going along with what Mr. Young is suggesting is if we are recognizing better and more competitive claims experience than the county as a whole, we very well could, and I don't know what's involved in having to secede from the union, so to speak, or, if that's something that's possible, but, I'm even thinking, again, we talked about this last year, things like captive insurance companies and whether or not public entities can pull one of those together for themselves. Again, it's like in the whole growth thing too, it's thinking out of the box and not always being, this is the way we've always done it and we have to keep doing it that way.
I think under the private acts that regulate Rutherford County finances, I think our option would be stay with the county or have a vote by our employees if the board wanted that, and move to the state plan. I don't think we could do anything to separate ourselves. Would it be possible to get some kind of separate accounting between our employees and county general employees? I don't know. I know that when we looked at some of the GASB scenarios, I did see some separated numbers at that point.
And I may be asking for something we don't want to see. If we don't know those numbers now and we look at the risk history.
I get anecdotal comments from Miss Street that in some of our groups, in some of our subgroups, we may have more adverse claims than county general. I think it's kind of a mixed.
And it probably is, but I'd love to be able to see those numbers.
What's the employee number different? We're over 5,000 as far as RCS.
Lisa Nolan said we're about 75% of the county budget. That's higher than I thought. I thought it was about 72.
Including building program and debt service and that. So.
But as far as employees.
Yeah, we're in that range, 70 to 75%.
Okay, so we have 5,000 plus, and they have
something over 1,000.
Okay.
So they would have no buying power left if we were able to separate them. So
one of our issues, and just because the teaching profession, Ms. Moore, is we hire more females, and they're more of childbearing age. They tend to carry the family coverage, so it's just that particular makeup probably.
I remember one Saturday morning, we had set the tax rate. It was about 9:30. Everybody was, I don't remember exactly, but it was a very small increase, a nickel maybe less. And after everybody's had their say and the vote, and we were about to adjourn, Dr. Bullen stood up. Everybody always paid attention when Dr. Bullen stood up. And he said essentially this. He said, well, this is over for another year, and we've done a pretty good job. Said, I don't really have any particular problem with it. But I do want to say this. The school system did not open a new school this year. And to my knowledge, they did not add any major new program to their budget. And he said, and we still cut it. And we passed a budget which essentially left them with exactly what they had before when they started. And then he said, don't pat yourself on the back too much. And he sat down. I don't want to go there if we can help that. But we just say, well, here we are, we got the same things we had before. And this, Mr. Young is he's so right about this insurance. Of course, that's only part of the problem, but it's a major part of the problem for sure. I don't know if you would think maybe a county commissioner would look at our system, look at the growth, look at the number of schools, and maybe I'm asking for something that will never happen, but looking at two brand-new schools that are opening up in their district, serving their citizens after all, and they see that we have got $9 million in raises that we can't do anything about, and they might give a little.
They won't unless we ask.
Oh, that's very true. They're not going to bring it up.
Certainly not an election year.
Mr. Chairman, I'm struck by an analysis that Lisa Nolan is quoted in a newspaper article. 2 more cents to the estimated certified rate would be a nearly 1% property tax increase. That would add about $13 more to the taxes for the owner of a $250,000 home, and she goes on to say the total property, but it's $13 more, $1 a month. How many of our citizens would give $1 a month to fully fund what this board feels like our educational system needs? It's striking to me that in the last 4 weeks, this board has signed off on $685,000 of money coming from somewhere in this community in order to have turf field at Blackman High School. And that money's coming from somewhere. For $1 a month, our school system can continue on a trajectory of excellence. And it's up to this board to decide, are we going to allow the citizens to pick which dessert they want to eat, or we're going to select the vegetables that need to be eaten?
This doesn't even take it. We talked about the other night, the safety meeting, adding a penny, 2 penny, stuff like that. Now, I have had a conversation with Mr. Carty and Mr. Lee also. We have some surplus this year in that capital projects. We've kind of built it up a little, that 6 cents they're basically giving us, that I still think safety is absolutely critical. That we may want to, even if we can't add pennies this year, take what the state's going to give us, maybe add some of that to get some of this safety stuff done. So, but not saying 1 or 2 pennies tonight for that. I'm not saying no, we're not leaving it, but we may have to divert temporarily or something to try to deal with that. And the technology piece is also there too. Going down the road, we're going to have to do a better job of funding the technology. That's why I say it's not sustainable where we are.
We haven't discussed the safety meeting at all. I don't know, your all's comments to me privately have been very positive about the meeting itself and the citizens and staff that we heard from and so forth. I think Pettis Reed's signs idea was a good idea. I really like that. I believe we can figure out a way to pay for that. Probably individuals will pay for that. I would think. I don't know that, but I would think that they probably would. Gosh, he offered to pay himself some of that cost, and maybe we ought to talk with the sheriff about his budget again and see about the SROs, the 3 or 4 or 5 substitute SROs, which will be working every day and substituting on some of those days. Maybe that's something that would be helpful and would increase our security somewhat. And I don't know if you had other ideas, other thoughts about that meeting, but that's going to take money and it's going to take a budget. And the sheriff is in the same boat as we are. He's got about 400 some odd deputies and staff members out there, and that's a big part of that 1,000 employees that Mr. Blair was talking about a minute ago, about the school system being right at 5,000 and the other general fund at 1,000. I mean, those are all things that are going to have to be considered. Mr. Blair, you're clearing your throat.
How comfortable are you, let me rephrase this. How uncomfortable are you with the 3.5% ending fund balance?
I am hoping my moderate estimate is still conservative enough that we will come in at a higher amount. It's the sustainability in future years if we use 13, 15 million. That is the area I'm not comfortable with particularly. But you can do what y'all want to do. I'm hoping that by the time we get to June 26th, we can increase our revenue numbers somewhat.
If we could find out what the growth money, and we don't know at all what we'll get there.
We don't know at all what we'll get.
We're somewhere, again, it's really hard to determine exact numbers of growth,
Yeah.
and it's by weighted months.
Yeah.
But it's something over between 1,000 and 1,100, I think,
Yeah.
is basically what our growth is this year.
But if we do ending fund balance at 3.5%, then our deficit is basically about 1.5 pennies. Is that correct? Or 1.25 pennies on the tax rate?
Probably something in that range.
And then you make up the rest with ending fund balance.
Right. Mhm.
But it's a high ending fund balance
Very high.
that you'd have to carry over year after year unless you can find a way to put it down.
It's very hard to get the county commission, I mean, when they've moved pennies away from us, they look, well, you're not going that, you can go another penny into ending fund balance. Getting back so you're not dependent on that deficit, and some amount of that is recurring. We are not going to spend, it's hard to spend 98% of our budget because of the laws and the regulations that govern. If we had perfect knowledge, we could spend more, but we're probably going to have 2% left. That's, on this budget, nearly $8 million that we will probably have left on an ongoing basis. It's anything above that 2% mark, or if your revenues start dropping, that will eat down that fund balance.
Mr. Hodge has been on the board the longest of us all, but I think he'll agree that every year the board has shared with the commission that we're going further and further into an ending balance, and this is going to come back and bite us eventually. Yes. We are really getting close now. And if, excuse me, if we can't get some kind of increase, it's just going to make it that much more difficult next year.
I want to share this problem with the people on the Hill and downtown Nashville. Because that's where the real money is, the real serious money. And if they're not going to help school systems in this state any more than some little dib and drab from BEP and keep these unfunded mandates coming along, they're not going to improve on any of that. We're absolutely in serious trouble, and not just us, but it'll be every county and every public school system will be in serious trouble. And Mr. Blair, I think if he's not right, he's right on it, because we're just about there, to where if they don't do it, we're in serious trouble. And I know we don't want to go back. I quoted somebody else a minute ago, Mr. Watson, the former superintendent, I go to church with him, and he told me about a month ago that the cuts that he made and the board made to educational assistants and some other people was the most miserable he has ever been in 40 years of public service. He said, y'all were here, I was not. I do remember it. I was teaching school at the time, but it was awful. He said he couldn't sleep. It was just terrible. And I see why.
That was 131 positions.
And he knew that test scores or scores in general were going to go down, and they did.
Are you ready for a motion?
Well,
Let's, we've got it in here for us to do. We have got to approve to include it. If y'all want to include the supplements, we've got to have a motion to do it. And then when you finish what we need to do, I kind of had over in 4 or wherever we are, approve it as amended. Whatever we choose to amend it, then that's the motion. Is that okay, what I'm talking about?
Or approve as presented.
Well, you got a bunch of things out if you do it presented. If you want to put some of this other back,
Yeah, wait a minute, now, let's not get too far ahead here.
I think there's some things here I'm going to recommend that we definitely, that's in there now, we be like the $2,000 for the swimming coaches. That's a drop, but I don't want us to leave that out.
Now, which,
I'm going down to 3 supplements on A.
so we're looking at this.
We're going back to your agenda. Back to your agenda. So A would be supplement the swimming coaches at Laverne High, Oakland High, Riverdale High, and Smyrna High in an amount of $2,000 per year for setup and maintenance of the pool due to usage of the pool by RCS School. The cost is about $8,000 plus $1,449 in benefits.
Is that number reflected in 387 million?
That number's in there right now.
Okay.
Okay, hold it just a second before somebody makes a motion. What about all of this? You don't want votes on these?
Well, when you do this, you're going to cover it.
They're all in there?
If you approve these coaching supplements or athletic directors and archery, then it will be in the number before the cuts.
Before the 2.4 cuts that were on that single sheet.
Before the 2.4 cuts.
Okay, so you're saying all of these are on this sheet of paper here?
With the exception of that 1.5%. We'll have to separate that out if we want to do that other one. The other 0.5%.
A through, little lowercase a through D.
Yeah. So the first one, we probably need a motion. If you want to pay that, then that stays in the budget. Of course, I didn't recommend taking it out to start with, but that stays in the budget. It wasn't an option.
Okay, I don't know anything about this at all, except Mr. Tackett has told me that we have swimming coaches that are absolutely working extremely hard to make sure that a lot of swimming teams swim and swim safely and have everything that they need. So that's really the extent of my knowledge of that. So he seemed to be very much for that. So, but we don't have a motion, so.
So I have a question on the swimming supplement. Is this an increase that they're not being supplemented at all right now, or is this a proposed raise?
They just get their swimming supplement, but we only have the 4 pools, and they're setting up for everybody else. Yeah. And this
For the 4.
This for just those 4
pool managers
that have the pools.
Okay,
They're the ones that hold the meets.
I got you. Not necessarily all the coaches, all the schools.
They get the coaching supplement, which is on another sheet you've got here for swimming coach.
Okay.
But this would be in addition because they've got this pools we swim at.
Also maintenance. Notice maintenance is on there.
Okay.
But this is not going directly to the swimming coach necessarily.
Well, it does. This is for maintenance of the pool. They're the ones cleaning it up, preparing it.
Okay.
Maintenance department handles supplies, but they're the ones having to do the work to add the supplies, and that's what I'm saying. We talked about this earlier in the year. Mr. Hodge may remember it one night. We talked about the 2,000 for those schools that had that. I'm just recommending we go ahead and do it.
It's holiday.
Put it in the package.
Make a motion to endorse 3, subletter A, as presented.
Need a second.
Second.
Mr. Blair, thank you. Comments? Discussion?
Do we need to do each letter?
It's what the director is asking for.
Yes.
Well, if you want it, some of you said you might want to break apart some of these others.
I'm not sure that makes the most sense, really, but
Yeah, that's where I said, or as presented, because all of these are in there. If we pass 387,899,000, et cetera, if we pass that, all this stuff's in there.
Okay, if everybody understands that includes your coaching supplement, your athletic director, your archer supplement.
Yes, sir.
Is listed, and that, you've got it. Now, the only other motion may be if you want to go back and change that 1.5% raise in something.
But right now, the 2% is in the 387 million, et cetera, number.
All of these supplements are in that 300.
That whole list of.
And a 2% increase for, and a 2% increase for certified and classified.
Okay, Mr. Holliday, you need to withdraw your motion then, if that's what we're going to do.
I withdraw my motion.
Mr. Blair, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, need a new motion.
Well, Mr. Estes had something.
Mr. Estes?
I think we need to vote on each one of them.
Well, was my intent, but I don't make motions. You can make a motion. We vote on every one of them if you want to.
I'm all right to vote on each one. It's okay, but
Okay, I'll make a motion, we vote on each supplement.
Need a second?
Second.
Mr. Young, thank you. Comments? Need to move on here now.
I think there will be a time when we can address some of these cuts, because it may not be that our funding body gives us everything that we ask for, but if we don't ask for everything that we feel we need, then we are to blame.
Then you need to vote against this motion, I'd say.
That's my comment.
Are there other comments?
Yeah, because my point would be, at this juncture, you know, just to start voting on each of these individually, the small amounts that they amount to, again, I would be of the mind that we should leave it alone and present it as is, so.
Any other comments?
And if you vote that way, we'll take this that you have approved these as supplement, unless we have to go back and revisit the budget. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
All right, make sure I got the motion right. The motion is, Mr. Estes, on page 1 here, 3, A, B, C, and D. The motion essentially is you want to vote on these individually. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, Mr. Young, you're all right? That's your understanding? Yeah. Are there other comments? Okay, all in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Is there opposition?
Yes.
No.
Okay, I believe that was 4-3 in favor of that motion. Is that right? Okay. Back to number A. Letter A, actually.
I will make a motion that item 3, subletter A, be approved as presented.
Need a second.
Second.
Blair remains consistent. Any comment on A about the swimming supplement? 3A. Give you a chance to look at it again. All in favor of approval of 3A by itself alone, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anybody opposed to that? All right, 7-0 on 3A.
Okay, B is a supplement for football field maintenance at Smyrna Middle, $2,000 plus $362 in benefits. They're not like a high school. They don't have the gate receipts and the things coming in. That's at old stadium, and they are having difficulty with the middle school coaches supplement there, keeping this filled up. So they did ask us that to try to help them.
That price that's on here, again, I'm really kind of quoting Mr. Tackett. I had a little bit to do, not necessarily with the money, but with just the opinion. Rocky Fork is also playing there now.
They may switch next year to Smyrna High.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
Okay, I didn't know that, so I probably didn't have any business commenting at all. So, okay, there was some discussion that they need to spend a whole lot more money than that on that field.
And that would probably be a capital improvement situation.
Yeah.
And not for the coach to keep it cut and the other stuff. They just don't.
So if Rocky Fork goes to Smyrna High School,
Just be Smyrna Middle.
maybe Smyrna Middle needs to go to Smyrna High School.
I don't know why they haven't done that. I don't have any idea.
So am I understanding correctly then that this is the only middle school football field that we still have in existence?
Because it was the old Smyrna High building.
It's a unique situation in that regard.
And the 2,000 is the total that they're asking for, or that we're asking for in the budget. But what does that keep? Somebody be a little more specific as to what that covers? I understand field maintenance, but
Probably field maintenance is what I'd say. Just the high schools, when the supplements come to you on the board agendas, you see field maintenance for the high schools. This, we would be paying $2,000 for field maintenance out of GPS funds because of the unique situation there. Middle school, very low gate.
It's providing grass seed, painting the field.
Well, they use their funds for that. They originally started asking for $10,000. So.
I was trying to keep that quiet.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan.
That's all right. But the field has shown heavy wear.
Yeah.
More probably than any place else.
Does any of the junior pro play on theirs down in?
I don't
Do you know? No.
Facilities use program, and it comes back to the system. For example, I think Providence uses that as well.
But what we're collecting from that is not enough to cover the field maintenance?
It doesn't cover the school. The majority of it doesn't go to the school. It goes into the general fund.
Just giving it back to them? So that's good.
So how is, I guess my question at the end of the day would be, how is it really being utilized? And who's utilizing it? And what are their alternatives if we say no more middle school football fields?
They have no practice field. This is both practice and play. Most of your high schools have a practice field separate from it, so it gets, every how many games they play and every how many practice sessions they have will be on that field.
So are all of our middle schools playing there then?
No, most are playing at high schools.
Okay, you
But
just
they
said that.
have a practice field somewhere near the school, so this literally.
Yeah, we've got a
become their
practice, Rocky Fork has a practice field. We built, at that new school, we built a practice field, but not a stadium. Smyrna Middle here has, since it was the old Smyrna High School, it had that old Smyrna Stadium, but no additional practice field that I'm aware of.
Yeah, because the only thing that's left over is the softball field and the soccer field, so that has to be the practice field too.
With the investment and the improvements that we've made at Smyrna Middle School, I don't want this large area of land to become an eyesore, and this will allow for staff to be able to maintain this at a acceptable standard. I make the motion that we accept 3, item B, as presented.
Need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday and Mr. Estes. Any further comment? All in favor of 3B, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? 3C.
Okay, 3C is coaching and athletic director supplements. There's actually 2 parts, the coaching, and it goes 9 high schools up to 23%, 1 at 10%. There's your cost. Then your athletic director changes, 10 high school at 6% for the athletic director, 13 middle schools at 1% add in 3% to the 3%, and then 32,292 plus the benefits. But either together or breaking that up, whichever one you want.
Probably need to do 3CA first and come back to the athletic director next. Now that
was your committee.
Yeah, that was our committee that met almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago. I don't remember how many times now we met, but 3 or 4 times. Anyway, you've heard all this before. We did middle schools 1 year and did high schools. We'd already done some high school stuff the year before, but we did middle schools and then we did high schools. These were an opportunity to look at supplements, which I thought were very modest amounts here, but at any rate to people that had not the same people, really different people, but they hadn't had a raise except just tiny little amounts of money. Whenever we raised a bachelor in 5, they might get a few dollars, but not anything, didn't pay any groceries. And in years, I think at least 10 years, and maybe a lot longer than that. But at any rate, that's what that is.
Well, and if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, there are also additions that are included in this number. If you look at your high school supplement proposed changes, these aren't just increases. There are also some additions that weren't currently getting supplements at all. Is that not correct? Assistant drama teacher, the athletic director's thrown in there, so, and discretionary fund. So I'm just trying to make sense of what, because that total, if I'm getting my numbers correct here, for the coaching and other additions, which these are basically essentially raises, They're certainly not new coaches that need supplementing. You've got, with the benefits, roughly 113,000, correct?
Well, you're telling me that's what it is, and I don't have it in front of
I
me.
was asking Mr. Sandvik, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, if that is right, he just said it was, I think that's a good thing. Is there a point there? We were responding to
Well,
what principals and assistant principals, athletic directors sent us over the course of a few weeks.
I understand, but going back to the whole premise of if we've got to cut budget, and this is an area that we're going to look at, just simply pointing out that that's a huge chunk of the overall supplement budget that we'll be talking about keeping in there when the whole reason behind looking at these one by one was to determine where we could cut if we were going to look at them one by one.
All right, is there a question in there?
No, just making a point.
Okay. Well,
I'd like to make a motion.
by all means.
Okay. I would move that the coaching and other additions that include raises for currently supplemented coaches not be approved as a part of the budget.
There's a bottom part, additions below, if they're not currently supplemented, are you including them or leaving them out?
Well, and that's really why I was asking the earlier questions, because it's kind of muddled. So if we're going to draw a differentiating line, we need to draw it on this sheet, Mr. Sandvik.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because you've got athletic director built in there too, and it's separated here, and then you've got assistant drama teachers that are currently at 0%. So that would be a new supplement addition, not raises like you have up in the above section.
Are you meaning, the 7 in the top section, are you meaning do not increase those? Is that the intent of your motion?
Well, isn't that what this CA, section C, subsection A, is defining?
Yes, that includes everything but the athletic director.
Okay. Now, the discretionary fund's already in there, correct?
Not for, the discretionary fund is included in the $113,000.
But we previously had a discretionary
Not
fund.
at
Is
high
this a new one?
At middle school.
Oh, this is strictly, okay, this is
Yeah,
strictly for the
this is-
high school edition.
Yeah, the only middle school change is in 3CB, the 1% added to the athletic.
The 10% discretionary fund for high schools, how much of that 113,000 does that account for? And what was the intent with the committee as to what that should cover or pay for?
I would say be treated like the middle school.
Yes, and it was definitely principal's discretion.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion?
I don't think so. Is there? Yes, there was a motion.
Should we ask for a second?
I think we should. Second. Do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Now let's go back to something that if we can here, that Ms. Moore just brought up, because no, let's not. Let's get to athletic director first and do whatever the committee, the board wishes on the athletic director, and then I want to come back and talk about archery and the discretionary fund for a minute.
Again, Mr. Chairman, point of order. We haven't had an affirmative vote on 3CA.
No motion.
Well, it failed for lack.
Didn't have a second to the motion.
Right, but that was a motion to take it out of the budget, and so we need a motion that puts it into the budget and endorses it. Is that correct?
Well,
Ms. Bush?
I thought if we didn't vote, it's there, but I guess you're probably right.
Well, I mean, on item A and item B, we endorsed those, and so I feel like, to be consistent, I'd like to make a motion that item C, subsection A, that the board endorse that and include it in the budget.
Okay, let me ask Ms. Sandig a question. Does that include the discretionary fund?
Yes, it does. No, I'm
right.
sorry. Yes, it does. It does not include the athletic director.
Okay, that's next.
That's next, yes. Yeah, it includes everything on this sheet except for the athletic director.
I need a second on Part A. Okay, that motion fails for lack of a second. We're just racing right along here. Let's come back to the discretionary fund, since we haven't decided anything on it yet, and it's my intent there, and I think the intent of the committee, and I did talk to the principals about this in this very room, that they consider archery as part of their discretionary fund, and that I didn't give them an amount. Now, Ms. Moore, I believe these amounts are yours, are they not? The 4% and whatever?
That was what we had initially talked about.
Okay, which I have no problem with, particularly, whatever y'all decide. We could take that out of the discretionary fund and essentially make the discretionary fund 6%, but archery would get 4% automatically. We'd set it like every other sport. We would set a certain figure for like we do every other sport. Or we could just pass the discretionary fund by itself and let the principals use it for archery if they so chose. Now, I don't really care, but I think I personally, and you all are going to get plenty of opportunity to talk, if we're going to supplement archery, I'd like for it to be a firm figure. Just take it out of the principal's hands. I think that's something that they probably wouldn't care anyway. It's just one more thing they wouldn't have to worry about, maybe. But that'd be up to y'all. So we still haven't done anything on CA. We're gonna have to either endorse it or not. We can't get a second to either one.
Didn't get a second.
Maybe, I don't make motions, and not going to, but maybe if we had a motion to take the discretionary fund, lower it to 6%, or take it out, well, yeah, lower it to 6%. If we had that in there, maybe that motion might pass.
I think we probably need Mr. Sandvig to tell us what the numbers on that would be. For instance, that Section A, you're talking 113,000. So if we removed 4% of that discretionary fund, how much would we look at actually taking away from that?
You'll give me a minute.
Sure.
To me, that would be about $2,100, wouldn't it? Or well, counting benefits, a little more than that per school.
What are you gonna use the 6% discretionary for?
Okay, now that's another issue. It's a good question.
My point is, if you look, what I'm trying to figure out, if you go down here to the high school archery supplement, we got 6%.
Take it out altogether if you want to.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're backing out if you're putting 6% for the high school right here, you're backing out 4%. What are you telling them they use that 6% for? I guess where I'm getting at, if they use that 6% for something else, they're not going to have that 4% for archery. And we're looking at 6%.
Well,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Some of the problem I've got right now, if you look at the middle school discretionary, I'm not too sure that that we've got archery programs out here that aren't paying these people discretionary money. Looking at your chart here.
Well, we do, but my understanding was that when we put in a set amount, that would do away. In other words, they're not going to get 4% from the discretionary and 4%.
I agree with you on that, but what I'm saying is, we've got discretionary on middle school, okay? 10% already. We've got discretionary.
Right.
But you take, and correct me, the archery people, I'll just use Oakland Middle here. They've got an archery program, don't they? Correct. But they're not showing the archery supplement. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's discretionary, yeah.
Well, somebody needs to be paid 3%, I guess is what I'm getting at. I don't think that's done right. So if we got the money sitting there, it needs to be utilized the way it should be. Am I making sense? I mean,
Well,
I don't want, when it comes to, I'm in favor, I'll just tell you straight up, I'm in favor of the high school archery, of the 6% down here. But a lot of this other stuff, you know, if you want to vote on it one-on-one, I'm not in favor of it, because I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this budget we got and these cuts that, if we don't do any of these cuts that we looked at or Mr. Odom project or recommended, stuff like that, my personal opinion, we're not doing our full duty. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. But I will say, out of these listings on supplements, I will say I am in favor of the high school archery. I don't see, as tight as we are and everything, I don't see how we can sit here and ask for money for these items. I mean, that's...
The question earlier, Ms. Moore, $20,611, if I calculated it right, but that's close. That would be dropping the discretionary supplement for high schools to 6% and adding a 4% middle school archery, high school archery supplement.
Okay, because we had high school at 6%.
Right. But I'm sorry, I understood the question to be drop it to take 4% out of the discretionary.
Oh, I think maybe we were getting numbers mixed with
Oh.
6 and 4, because you're at
If
10%.
4% is 20, then 6% is going to be 30.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just rough.
Yeah.
But that's coming out of money we've already put in if we...
Not on high school discretionary.
Well, if we take discretionary out, then
We
that'll
haven't done anything to discretionary yet.
solve that. Can I make a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, please do. Yes, sir.
I make a motion for the time being, we take the discretionary fund out, the 10% out.
From the high school supplement proposed, or both?
On the page where it's got additions or below.
Proposed changes? Okay.
Discretionary fund?
Yeah.
That's just high.
That's just high school.
Right.
That's just high.
Yeah.
Just take that out of the vote for right now. We can always add it later.
I need a second to that motion, and we're going to wait till Mr. Young comes back.
Second.
Mr. Blair has seconded the motion there, Ms. Bush. And we're being very patient. I think he'd like to vote on this.
I didn't clear my
So
throat.
let me, clarification, please, on the motion is to take the entire 10% out of the budget, Mr. Estes?
High school.
Right. No, I know we're talking high school, but take the entire discretionary fund out?
Yeah. Right, for high schools, which is fine. And if we're going to come back, I assume that we're going to come back and vote on, well, I know we are, because it's on here, we're going to vote on a high school archery supplement. And it won't come from the discretionary fund right now if this passes, because there won't be a discretionary fund. So we'll set an amount. And just like we set every other sport, and assistant coaches and whatever. I hate to vote without these two gentlemen being in the room.
Mr. Holliday has left for the evening. He won't return.
Okay.
Everybody go or something?
Still got a quorum.
We want to wait until Mr.
Y'all want to take a break?
How's that?
We're going to adjourn.
No,
No, not adjourn.
We're gonna
Recess. I might want to adjourn. We're going to recess for 10 minutes, let's say. 10 minutes. Please be back. And he's back. What? Yeah. We recessed for 10 minutes. It's your fault.
This right here.
Somebody remind me when we're having fun yet?
We still got a ways to go, I hate to say it. At least there's a pizza they're gonna leave us here this long. It's not only our problem. It's gonna be our problem next year and the year after. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's there. I mean, it's just not a problem now. It's gonna be next year. Yeah. And,
we're just
it's gonna be it's gonna be a worse problem next year.
Could be, yeah.
Well, it's gonna be worse opening through school.
Yeah.
And,
Because we got $5 million set aside, but we hadn't set anything aside for Rocky Fork.
yeah, well, like I said, if we don't make any cuts, we're not doing our job. That's the way I look at it.
Trey says he's a little worried about this Rocky Fork, what we thought we'd had it, but it changed so much. He's a little worried about that, too.
Just find out tomorrow.
Well, Mr. Odom, didn't we, now, we talked about this football field at Smyrna before. And wasn't Rocky Fork gonna play there?
And they have been playing there, but Smyrna High, since it's a feeder school, has divided them to come play on their field. You want to really know the inside?
$2,000. Give them $2,000.
That's exactly what it's about.
You made the most second
That's the
most.
truth. We'll recruit it.
Enough $2,000 will take care of it.
They already get it. They get it every year.
Mr. Holiday leave us?
I could have been way out here. We could have been out here if we did this right here.
She was back here with him. He must have had to go somewhere.
Okay, bye-bye.
From here on.
We having fun yet?
Yeah.
I think it's Mr. Blair's fault.
Blame him.
You've been sitting here right quietly.
That's what happens when you're late.
I'll blame it on somebody, right?
There'll be enough to go around before all this is done this year, I'm gonna tell you. Ooh. They're so afraid because of the, kind of the election and constituents contacting them about the appraisal, that's what they're dealing with.
Well, I don't know if they understand the appraisal. There's a lot not to understand.
She probably a few minutes.
30% 1 year is a lot of time.
Did she leave me?
Schaefer said a lot of them down there, at
She
the
didn't
Lake
leave no
Forest,
message.
where it's so largest subdivision state Tennessee, down there in Laverne, that some of those were close to 50% up. You know, cause some of them were built during kind of that time.
Oh, man, all I did was cut the grass.
Talk to me, talk.
I didn't even do that. Driveway's falling apart. My home is worth thousands of dollars more. I ever dreamed it was.
You should have done all that remodeling.
Oh, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Renovation inside. They can see my indoor swimming pool. Boy, hey.
Is that in the kitchen now?
Oh, man, somebody take that serious. You got an indoor swimming pool. Y'all ready?
Waiting on you, boss.
Okay. All right. Come to order. We'll get back on this. Where are we? What do we?
Discretionary fund.
CA.
Take it out, right? That was the motion. Was there a second to that? Mr. Blair seconded. Well, I'm not sure that counts, but I guess it does. Are there comments on the 10% high school discretionary fund supplement? Okay, we have a proper motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody opposed?
No.
Okay, it's 4-2, I believe.
But all we did was take the 10% out. Isn't that correct?
Which hasn't been there.
So, but we hadn't approved A yet. We just,
Thought we were doing A and just taking discretionary away from it. That's what I was voting on.
oh, was that the motion?
Yeah, I
That's
thought,
what I was voting on, but
yeah, we were doing
The
A.
other motion.
Oh, okay.
misunderstood it.
Now that's,
That's what I was looking at.
me too. Well, that's,
So we've got to have a yes for the rest of it, is that it?
yeah, we got to go to the athletic director.
But A was approved with the deletion of the 10%.
The 10%, now, remember now, that's 10% per school. So that's a lot of money that we've saved there, better or worse.
Motion was just to take it off and then vote on it. you still got to vote on A,
without the discretionary.
whatever it is.
I mean,
Okay,
the rest of it, right, yes.
well, it wouldn't change my vote anyway, so that, I'm not gonna worry about that.
We
If
still
that's,
need to vote on it.
yeah, exactly. So do I need another motion on that, or? Sounds like I do. I need a motion to approve A without the 10% discretionary fund supplement.
But approving the rest of it.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Is there a second to that motion? I hope. Motion dies for lack of a second. So now where are we?
B?
Well, we got to do something with A.
Oh, well,
Are there other changes that you want to A?
I think A is dead.
I already
It's-
proffered mine, so.
It's already been voted on both ways, so, I mean, it failed for a motion, so A is just deleted. It doesn't exist anymore.
Well, okay.
I mean, is that not correct?
On a point of order, it would die in an ordinary motion, however, because this is budgeted in the current budget, is that correct? So there would need to be a motion to either keep it or delete it to reflect in the current budget.
well, we're gonna do that. That'll be your motion for as amended. That's why I suggested we didn't approve the general purpose school budget until we went through any amendments to be made.
Right.
So
but-
it's there until it's,
There unless we take another, okay.
And if you approve the budget with the approved amendments, then that'll be out. But the other,
10% discretionary.
yeah, 10% discretionary is out.
It is out.
It is out.
Yeah, okay.
discretionary, but this is still in until,
But
unless
we
we do something else.
Even though it's presented as this on an agenda, we don't have to have a motion and to keep it in there? I mean, there's already been a motion to keep it in there and it failed, and we already had a motion to take it out and it failed, so,
Yes, I think you'd have to have a motion to either keep it in or take it out.
which we already have, and both of them have failed, so where are you then, from a parliamentary standpoint?
Well, I'm not quite sure with that. Unless the chairman would entertain another motion.
I think I'm going to have to.
To take it out of the budget or
Or leave it in,
leave it in, minus discretionary?
minus discretionary fund.
Well, my motion failed, so I can't make another one on that, so.
Either.
You can't make another motion?
I
can't make the same
I
motion.
can't make a replacement motion, I don't think, since I made a motion that did not get a second, so.
You're not exactly racing along, and I don't want to take another break.
No.
I'll make a motion that we take it out.
Young has made a motion that we take out
Second.
CA, and Mr. Estes has seconded that motion.
That was the same motion that I made earlier that failed, so I'm really confused now.
I believe the motion is after discussion, so that would be okay.
Yeah, and it was, discretionary fund was not in there, was it?
No,
Not now, it's not in there now.
no.
Was in there.
And it wouldn't have
Wasn't
been in there
there during
before,
your-
taking it all out, so I'm not sure I understand what the difference is.
When you made your original motion, it was 3CA as written. Now the motion is taking out 3CA, and there's already been a motion to
take out discretionary funds, so it is different. It's a different motion.
But we wind up at the same place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just went around the world, but we got.
Robert's rules for you.
Are there comments on 3C, A, and Mr. Young's motion? Well, I may be the only one that's going to vote against this, but I'm not going to vote against our employees. And I understand, though, I didn't say that very well, and I apologize for that. That's not a very good way to say it. I don't think I can support this, and I understand why you might vote in favor of this.
Would discussion not already be closed since the motion's on the floor and been seconded? Point of order.
No.
You can have discussion on the motion since it's been seconded.
Any other discussion? All in favor of Mr. Young's motion, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And I am opposed.
No.
Mr. Blair's opposed. Okay, C, B, Athletic Director. My comments on those, we've probably already had them earlier. This was something Mr. Tackett felt strongly about, and he was on our committee, of course, as County Athletic Director, and we put it in there for
Move to approve.
Need a second to approve CB. Motion fails for lack of a second. Other motions involving CB and the athletic director.
I guess my struggle here is increasing any supplements right now until we get the rest of our budget money approved, especially 2% for overall raises. I mean, that's got to be, that's what I'm struggling with here. So I just can't throw money in supplements when we can't assure our teachers you're going to get a 2% raise.
Other comments on, we don't have a motion now on CB.
Just make the comment that, and I hear what Mr. Young is saying, and it really is a double-edged sword, because if we take them out, we don't ask for them, there's no way we're going to get to go back and put them back in, would be my thoughts, but I mean, I agree. I'd rather not see supplements as opposed to not being able to give our teachers raises or other things that are so needed in the budget.
These athletic directors, how does that play in with assistant principals?
Well, in middle schools, very often it's an assistant principal. It's not, Blackman High, assistant principal is athletic director, right? I'm not sure anybody else.
Both ways, Blackman.
Well, Blackman, it caused, Mr. Reed is athletic director.
I do not know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
I guess my question is, what would you do in that situation?
Well, that was gonna be, if y'all got a second or something, I was gonna say, how do we apply this if they're already being paid as an assistant principal?
That's my question.
It would have to be taken out of the assistant principal just for the high schools, but it would have to be taken out of the job description because you can't supplement someone for what they're already required to do. But that's an relatively easy change. Dr. Anthony does that through her office.
But what if that assistant principal wants to keep doing that job?
They could do it and receive a supplement. It would no longer be required of them.
Todd's asked a good question, and it's something that we haven't been, we probably need to maybe look at the policy on that, and we need to tell the principal, you're going to have to make an assistant principal athletic director, or you may make anybody you choose to be athletic director, one or the other, and take it out of the job description, which you just said. I'm going to quote Mr. Estes down there, who said something earlier about if you're going to be an assistant principal and you're going to be maybe be in training at some point for a principalship somewhere. One of the many duties, and there are many, but one of the most important ones is involving a thorough understanding, as best you can, of athletics, because it's a big part of our curriculum. And so maybe making it an athletic director part of the job description is not a bad idea. And keeping it there, making it that way. Now, Mr. Spurlock is going to be up here pretty soon on a full-time basis, but he's got an excellent athletic director that's not an assistant principal. So there's an argument against this at more than just one school.
I think some of these assistant principals, Mr. Spurlock probably, you may correct me. I think probably a lot of these assistant principals, they don't have time to do it anyhow. And probably a lot of them don't want to do it. Is that correct? That would be correct.
So has it just kind of fallen to them as a default, sort of, over the years?
It's in the job description to say, if you take this job as assistant principal, if the principal asks you to be athletic director, that'll be part of your job because you agreed to it. But there's not a guarantee that says, if you're a principal, that you're automatic athletic director.
So it's kind of like one of those other duties as assigned at the bottom of the job description.
Yeah, specifically in this case.
We've had everything at one time or another in this county. We've had principals who were the athletic director, but not in name. They were just, they issued the orders. And I know at Laverne, Jan Stauffer for years was athletic director. And I was right next to him in the office there, and they actually, as Mr. Hodge just said, they run you crazy. He was in charge of rosters and trophies and banquets, and not for every sport, but for anybody that needed any help. And it had over a dozen sports. It's a big job.
There's currently no motion on the floor.
Thank you. I was actually aware of that, but that's okay.
Using the same logic with A, B is still in the budget unless we vote to take it out. Is that right?
I think we would have to vote one way or the other on this. They're action items, so they're going to need a vote one way or the other to keep it in the budget or to take it out.
Same logic we had with A.
Need a motion on the athletic director part of this. Take it out or leave it in.
I'll make a motion that we take it out.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second to Mr. Young's motion?
Second the motion.
Ms. Moore, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. Are there further comments? All in favor of Mr. Young's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I guess I'm opposed. Mr. Blair's opposed. Okay. 3B. We have 3D, Part A.
Tell me, Mr. Sandvig, who is in D, Section D? Who is in, what three schools are in that one? Would it be Eagleville?
Thurman Francis, Eagleville, and Central Magnet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thurman Francis, Central Magnet, who was the other?
Eagleville.
Eagleville.
Do they have a discretionary fund?
Yes, they do.
Those three schools do?
At middle school level.
Yeah, middle school.
Central has 2% archery, Eagleville 3, Thurman Francis is not supplementing it. I don't know if they have.
My question is, do they have a 10% discretionary for middle?
They do.
Okay, but they're just using those percentages right now.
Right.
But they do have the 10%.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
At the middle school level.
Middle school level.
But we've got an opportunity, and I'm not speaking for or against this, but we've got an opportunity to make it a firm 4%.
That's my whole intent for my question.
Yes, sir.
That's what I was asking. I mean, that's where I'm going with it.
Okay.
So, whichever way you want to, you're on A first.
Exactly. You want to read A?
A is the elementary archery supplement of 2%. It'd be at 24 schools, $21,233 plus $3,845 in benefits. It is in the budget now, so you'll either motion yes, leave it, or take it out.
I'll make a motion to take it out. As I said before, I'm afraid once we start on the elementary, it's gonna be a never-ending deal. I can see softball, baseball, football, cheerleading, you name it. I can see it coming down the pipe. So I'll make a motion to strike A.
Need a second on that motion, and then the floor is open for comments.
Second.
Mr. Estes, I believe that was you. Okay, motion properly made and seconded. Comments on D, A?
Yeah, I have voiced this thought process before, but just once more for the record. And if we're removing things for the sake of the budget, I get it. If we're removing them for reasons, as Mr. Hodge just presented, I do think that we need to go back and remember that the archery program has already presented to us time after time after time the evidence of how important that elementary program is. And I think we've got justification of not being able to, or not having to leave that door open, so to speak, if other sports come calling. Because once again, those elementary sports, whether it be baseball or football or basketball or cheerleading, have opportunities within the community to hone those skills at that level. And you've got the fact, too, that they've presented to us very, very clearly that the development of these archers lends itself to the academics of our schools as well. So,
Well, and I understand what you're saying, but once they see it can be done, you're gonna have every group out here in these elementary schools starting something.
I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, Mr. Hodge, but I understand what you're saying, but we still have the ability to say no for those reasons.
It's hard for me to sit up here and say no when we're saying yes to something else. It's one of the others as far as I'm concerned, but,
well, if our archery program, with all of the accolades and the awards and the things that it's brought to the school system, as well as the academics, the opportunities that it's given to kids out there that otherwise athletically can't compete in other types of sports and events, if we let it die at the elementary level, then the whole program itself is probably going to die, which is the last thing that I want to see happen. But
I'm not
your
saying
point's
let it
understood.
die. And I'm in favor of it, okay? But the point I'm making, I don't see a reason. If you don't pay a supplement, you're telling me it's going to go away?
These coaches have been at it for a really, really long time without even having asked for anything. So, I'm not saying that's a fait accompli, but I certainly think it's something that down the road we're going to see a wanting desire for those elementary level coaches to want to keep plugging away and not be recognized for it all. So.
Further comment? Okay, the motion and the second is to remove, right? A, 3D, A. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Nay.
D.
B.
B.
And the reason I put these in here is because you either individually or collectively ask me to come up with this and put it in the budget so we can see a dollar amount. So that's why it's in the budget. So the middle school archery supplement of 4% at 11 schools, $19,464 plus $3,524 in benefits. And I'm assuming here, since middle schools are already getting that 10% discretionary, we're setting what they have to spend that 10% as. Is that right? I'm not sure this would increase the budget if we're not going to add If we make them take it out of that, I don't know. I mean, that's my
Need a-
clarification.
Do you need will there need to be an additional motion?
Yes.
We may
Sure
want to
that
modify it. I just want to get it clear for all, you
I
know,
think the motion needs to be
to take from,
to take the 4% from the discretionary fund, and that way it won't cost us any additional money. If we just, oh, yes, I think.
They're guaranteed to get the archery.
Well, all we would really be doing here is,
We got 6% discretionary now.
right,
in essence.
I'll make that motion, I'm good with it.
okay, let me make sure I've got it right, or Ms. Bush has got it right. You're gonna leave it in there as is and take the 4% from the discretionary fund.
Correct. You're gonna guarantee archery's got 4% on middle school.
Set middle school archery at 4%
And reduce the middle school discretionary
to be taken
10
from,
to 6.
to be taken from discretionary funds.
Right.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Blair.
That's no additional cost to the board.
Right.
Because it's coming out of the 10% discretion.
It really is just in essence, there are a few schools that are not, the principals are not necessarily dedicating any dollars to archery. So it's really just ensuring that those middle school coaches get that money. And you've got a couple on here too that I would point out, like Smyrna and Christiana, where the principals obviously have a lot of respect for the archery program and are supplementing a little more than 4%. Now, my understanding of those discretionary funds would be that if that Christiana principal wants to continue to supplement their archery coach at 6%, they can still pull another 2% from the existing discretionary that's already there. Is that correct?
You have another
No?
motion that you can't use discretionary funds to supplement a head coach. For other areas, you said that in. This is, of course, new here. That was an overriding motion from the original discretionary.
Okay.
In other words, it was to be used for, you know, you got the baseball coach, but you need a coach on first base, so supplement a
Right.
You could have an assistant.
Assistant coach.
You could have an assistant.
Okay.
the system couldn't pay the coach.
Yeah.
Ms. Moore asked an excellent question. That's really a very good point. But the 6% wasn't tied to us. If they're paying 6%, we didn't set it at 6%. So, they had the money. So we're setting it at 4%, which seems fair to me. Any further comment? Are we all right on motion and second? We're okay there, aren't we?
I think we need a second. I think we were clarifying the motion.
Mr. Blair seconded.
Motion, Mr. Blair.
Any further comment on, and make sure I get this right now, we're going to leave it as it is, going to take 4% out of discretionary fund and pay middle school archery coaches. Is that correct? Okay. Any further comment? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Part C.
Part C is high school archery supplement of 6% at 9 schools, $15,925 plus $2,884 in benefits.
I'll make a motion to approve that one.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Second, was that you, Ms. Moore?
Is this being treated the same way coming out of
And
discretion?
they didn't have discretionary, so this will be new
Have
money.
discretionary, I understand that.
Already took that out. So all we're doing here,
You're adding 15,925 plus 2,800 benefits.
that is correct. Any comment? All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
No.
Young is against.
Now, this one involves discretionary. How many, did all of these three have discretionary? They could actually fall under the middle school up there.
They should they?
I didn't know how you wanted clarification on that, which is why I listened. So it's middle school grades. We have discretionary funds at those schools.
That would be middle school to me.
I would interpret it as really with the B motion covers it to me because they already get the discretionary, no cost to the county in additional.
That's what I was asking.
Okay,
That's what I.
that makes sense.
Is it possible, is any of that in Central Magnet, is that any of that high school? Well, I guess we've already approved the high school at never mind. Asked and answered, sorry.
Okay, so we're all right on D.
That's the way I understand it.
So we need to remove it, correct? You still need a motion?
It's already covered in B. Okay, now, if I've been following you tonight, 4 is to approve the budget so we can present it to the commission next Tuesday night. Now, some of you said you would like to add back that other 0.5% to teacher raises. I mean, it's in there, it's not in there now, is it?
It is in there now. The step at year 26 and above is not in there.
So if we just, so we haven't approved that part, the 26 and above, so there'll be nothing there added, but it is in there already to be in there for
2%.
at 2%.
It's in there now, 2%.
Right. If you want to improve the long-term people, it'll be 197,000 more, well, is that in there?
To add the 500,
That is not in there.
add that,
If we added the $500 for people with 26 or more years of experience, that'll add 196,000.
That is not in.
to help with retention.
So it wasn't in the original total?
No, sir. Trying to come up with something to make the 0.5% mortality.
Well, they'll get a full 2%.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I mean, they won't get the 500, but they'll get a full, they're gonna get a 0.5% more than they would have gotten.
So,
At 500.
what's the full, 2% gonna be?
Whatever their salary basically was, how many years?
We dropped down to 1.5% down here, it saved $1.2 million, right?
Right. If
If
you
we
drop
go
to
back-
1.5 and drop to 1.5, but then added that 26, the $500 step at year 26, and for everyone who's above that, that offsets it and makes the net drop $1,214,000. You've got an increase offsetting part of a decrease.
We just put the 500 in there because we felt those long-term people, they're beyond their step increases. So that 500 was to give them some extra, but now they'll get the full 2%, actually maybe a little more than that if they got a master's or some other stuff.
It'll still be 2% on their base.
Yeah, 2% on that base.
So you'll have to add that figure to the total?
No,
And-
the 2% is included in the
I
total.
understand 2%,
But
I'm talking about the 500.
The 500 is not.
It's gonna go away, or,
It'll go away unless you,
so if we go 2%, the $500 deal's going away?
Yeah.
right.
All right. I guess going back to square one, really the only changes we're making to the overall budget is these supplement changes, correct?
Yeah, that's what you
If you
said.
choose to address anything else on the other page,
On any of the other pages on the budget. It's the budget as amended, approve the budget as amended. The only amendments I've heard tonight were these athletic pieces, unless there's something else y'all want to change.
So we're at 387,899 until you make those adjustments for, which will lower it a little bit. Okay.
Let me just, I'm gonna ask one more time. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Odom, but on these other items here, is there anything else that, I just wanna make sure we're doing our job. Is there anything else here that you think
You know, it could be one of those things that if we have to come back and visit it,
deal with it then?
I mean, that's up to you. If you wanted to go ahead and take it out tonight, we could, but we can present it and then come back. And if we have to, that's probably gonna still be some things I think we ought to look at.
Yeah, I'm good, I'm good with that if you feel comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with it if we can get the budget through. That's all.
You need a motion to approve 2018, 2019 general purpose school budget as amended? Is that what you need?
That is the motion.
I'll make that motion.
Young, thank you for that motion. What was that? Mr. Estes, thank you. Comments from anyone?
Can we get clarification again.
Okay.
On revenue versus budget, the page 2 of 2.
Okay.
So, as far as the personnel, are all those things being deleted?
Everything that was a minus are put back in temporarily, right?
They're back in?
They are in at
Okay, okay. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure.
Where it said -1 sped, it's really now 8.
Okay.
If we have to come back and revisit it, we'll probably.
Right.
What about the technology piece?
The technology piece, was it in or out?
I have not deducted that yet.
Still in, everything, I understand you right, everything's in other than these supplement changes we just
Okay.
This is just kind of our probably focused starting point.
We've talked about so much, I just want to make sure
I'm with you.
I was clear.
We get to talk.
Motion been made and properly seconded that we approve this as amended. And any further comment? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
So we got some amendments, which are typical at this time of year. Number 5, General Purpose School Fund 141 for the 2017-18 amendments in budget, not next year's budget, this year's budget. Number 1 is medical and life insurance. This amendment reallocates a total of $321,379 in already budgeted medical and life insurance expenditures to the line items where funding is needed due to staff changes and changes made during open enrollment. This $321,379 is 0.71% of the medical and life insurance dollars included in the general purpose school budget. Recommend motion to amend $321,379 in already budgeted medical and life insurance expenditures to the line items where funding is needed due to staff changes and changes made during open enrollment as presented.
There are no comments. I need a motion. Mr. Hodge, thank you. A second? Ms. Moore, thank you. Comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Mr. Director.
Number 2 is certified staff. This amendment reallocates a total of $630,390 in already budgeted certified staff and related $97,490 payroll benefits for a total of $727,880 to the line items where funding is needed due to staff changes since the 2017-18 budget was approved. This is $630,390 is 0.35% of the certified staff dollars included in the general purpose school budget. No unbudgeted positions are included. And the motion is to amend $630,390 in already budgeted certified staff and related $97,490 in payroll benefits for a total of $727,880 to the line items where funding is needed due to staff changes since the 2017-18 budget was approved as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Young, thank you. A second? I think that's Mr. Estes. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? 3.
3 is classified staff and special education department teachers. This amendment cleans up the classified staff portion of the budget for the actual staff we have this year and vacation payouts for employees who are retiring. The amendment also reallocates $180,000 in budgeted special ed teaching positions that we have used to cover the special education assistants we have placed this year. Funding these EAs with already budgeted special ed dollars will help our maintenance of effort. The amendment totals $295,219 with $280,555 in salaries and wages and related $14,664 in benefits. And remember, EAs are very often driven as you have IEP meetings during the year, so this is cleanups from those changes based on IEPs.
Need a motion? Mr. Hodge, thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Blair, thank you. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Top of page 3. Number 4, substitute teachers. This amendment moves $307,000 in already budgeted certified and non-certified substitute teacher pay to the major functions and line items where it is needed. No new funds are being used. Recommend motion to amend $307,000 in already budgeted certified and non-certified substitute teacher pay to the major functions and the line items as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Blair, thank you. A second? Mr. Hodge, I think. Any comments?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Moore.
Can you kind of elaborate a little bit what the allocation to major functions and line items a little more specifically what that is?
Like regular instruction is one major function. We have two sub-lines, certified and non-certified.
Okay.
So this is just moving the total substitute dollars around to hit in the proper major function, say special ed as opposed to CTE, and certified versus classified.
That's what I
And I think state law allows the board to move it within the category, but you have to go back to the commission for the major function or something like that.
Yeah. Amendment 6 is an example of that.
So I think we've got men, 307,000 already budget certified, non-certified, substitute pay to the major function, line items as presented.
Okay, we have a motion? And a second? All in favor? If there are no comments, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? 5.
Okay, technology, this is going ahead and purchasing some that we talked about earlier. Technology, the State Department of Education added a technology major function 2 years ago. The direction we get for recording technology expenditures continues to change. This amendment addresses those changes and specific actual expenditures we're making this year to update our system-wide technology and safety items. Technology is included in Function 71-100, regular instructional program, and Function 72-250, technology, and now Function 72-610, operation of plant to the safety items. This nature of expenditure and the placement of the actual equipment determine where a purchase is charged. This part of the budget totals $4,955,454 this year. The amendment moves $413,000 or 8.33% of the technology budget for contracts, materials, and equipment to the appropriate line item per state guidelines. There's no new funds in this. Recommend motion to amend $307,000 already budgeted technology.
Mr. Odom, I'm sorry.
413?
413, yes.
Right. To amend $413,000 in already budgeted technology expenditures as presented. You know, I think this is the third year in a row they've moved functions for technology.
The irony is what they told us the first year the way it would be is close to the way it is winding up, but they change it in between.
At least 3 years in a row.
And we are always going to have amendments within the technology department because we don't know, we know general direction, but we don't know, well, we're going to have to put so much here to replace servers or hubs and all that.
Okay, remember that motion, you might want to correct that in your copy. It's $413,000. I need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Young, thank you. A second? Second. Mr. Blair, thank you. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Number 6.
Number 6 is the transfer of non-labor items to other non-labor items in the same major function. This budget transfer amends $2,067,416 in already budgeted non-labor items to other non-labor items in the same major function. The state is asking that we start using Object Code 312, contracts with other agencies for special education expenditures, which is Function 71-200, for the Rutherford Academy placements. This is a $1,106,549 change from Object Code 399, other contract services. 3 other functions, 72-610, plant operations, 72-620, maintenance, and 72-710, transportation, are the other functions with major changes. These changes are similar to the changes we see at year end in these areas. To amend $2,067,416 in already budgeted non-labor items to other non-labor expenditures within the same major function as presented.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Ms. Moore, thank you. A second?
Second.
Hodge, I believe.
Mr. Hodge.
Okay. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. You
Number
can flip
7.
a coin, Ms. Bush.
Number 7 is for revenues, fund balance items, and other. This amendment covers the first installment of the BEP growth funds, $2,593,451, net growth in property taxes of $1,500,000. Insurance proceeds for the Blackman High Wrestling Building is $336,048. Prior year donations, $78,526, and current year donations and grants of $61,623. It also changes the revenue account for the Coordinated School Health grant per the state and adjusts $22,000 in already budgeted CTE expenditures between line items 71,300 and 72,230. A is the BEP growth funds, $2,593,451. What is that minus? Is that minus or just 25?
No, it's just.
Dash $2,500,000 will be moved to account 34,655 committed for education to be used for opening costs for Rockville High in 2019-20. $93,451 will be budgeted to the 71,200, 312 for special education contracts and other agencies. That's that $2,500,000 we're setting aside to finish our $5 million. B is the net growth in local property taxes. An additional $1,500,000 will go to unassigned fund balance. C is the insurance proceeds for the Blackman High Wrestling Building. $333,048 will be moved to account 34,655 committed for education. Blackman is raising the additional funds needed before rebuilding can begin. The $78,526 in prior year donations in uncommitted fund balance and $61,623 in current year donations and grants total $140,149 and are being added to the appropriate line items for those monies. So the first motion is to amend the additional revenues of $4,155,074, decreased unassigned fund balance by $78,526 for prior year donations, increased line item 71,200 and 71,312 special ed contracts with other agencies by $93,451, increased expenditures related to the current year in prior year grants and donations by $140,149, and other revenue and expenditure changes as presented.
All right, let's vote on that one separately.
Okay.
Need a motion on the first recommended motion.
So moved.
Mr. Estes, thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Young, thank you. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Second motion.
Second recommended motion to increase unassigned fund balance by $1,500,000 for the net growth in local property taxes to increase account 34,655 committed for education by $2,500,000 to be used for opening costs for Rockville High in 2019-20. Increase account 34,655 committed for education by $336,048 for the Blackman High Wrestling Building, and to decrease the account 76,100-399 capital outlay contract services by this $336,048 as presented.
Need a motion?
See, by including the Rockville, by go ahead and dedicate it to a line item, it doesn't become an ending fund balance. They look at, tonight you were looking at the uncommitted. With this action taking place, that money would not show as an ending fund balance because it's committed. You've dedicated it for Rockville High. It's separating those two.
And I could not make that one motion without making it so convoluted.
I understand. I need a motion for the second one.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. A second. Ms. Moore, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And there are none, and it passes unanimously. What else, Mr. Director? Is there something else?
I think, unless you've got any other business, I think that's it.
Question. Commission meets this Thursday night. Do we give them some paperwork on that night?
They requested, and I was going to deliver 21 sets with the changes that y'all made tonight. And that set will include the effect of the amendments you approved tonight, even though they will start voting on 6 of those 7 amendments at our joint meeting next Tuesday. So I'll probably give them a package of the amendments too, so I can see that.
That's our next meeting, of course, the joint meeting, 1 week from tomorrow night, I believe.
No, we have a budget.
I'm sorry.
We have another budget meeting on May 21st.
Okay.
For you, and.
I don't have that on mine.
If you want it.
Oh, well,
I'm not saying it's not here, I'm saying it's not on mine.
Oh.
That's probably my fault.
No, it may be my fault.
Wasn't on Miss Joyce's thing.
It's a budget on the 29th.
Oh. Okay, well, I will be adding the Capital Projects Fund and the School Cafeteria Fund budgets to the agenda for Thursday of this week then.
No, we don't meet till Thursday
Don't
next
meet.
week.
Whenever, I don't know what day it is, whenever we meet. When do we meet this?
I think it's next week.
That policy
We
tomorrow.
do have a
tomorrow.
regular board meeting next week, though.
Okay.
We don't have
okay,
anything
okay.
on the 21st.
We'll have it next week. Sorry.
Make my policy meeting
We
longer.
do have policy tomorrow. We do have policy, and that's at 5 o'clock too, isn't it? Policy's 5?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Y'all voted to move everything to 5, I think, but unless otherwise.
The 22nd is at 5:30, joint meeting. Anything else? Don't you think Ms. Bush picked a really good night and to join us in the
Ms. Joyce has a
note-taking
hard
process? She's so thrilled that Joyce left her.
We even used her legal expertise, didn't we, tonight?
I was very glad to have her here.
Dual roles here.
Group?
Joyce was a smart one.
Yeah, yeah. Went to visit grandchildren. And if there's nothing else, I really appreciate the discussion tonight, and I think we had a lot of very good input this evening. I think we did good things. I hope so. I guess we'll find out pretty soon. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.